So because piecewise functions, you guys are a little bit more challenged with piecewise functions and with domain and range, I want to just do like a small video going over certain examples. So I just have a graph or a paper full of graphs, but notice that they're not really piecewise functions. They're just a piece of a certain function. Okay? So to understand piecewise functions, it's easier to look at one piece at a time. If you're able to understand one piece at a time, you'll be able to write any piecewise function down. So if we look at this one right here, what would that line actually be? Well, you need a slope and a y-intercept. What's the slope of this line? -1, or -1/1, whatever you want to call it, right? What's the b value? Where does it cross the y-axis?
3.
At 3. All right. So our equation would be y equals -x plus 3. But this is obviously not the complete line. It doesn't go this way forever. It stops right here. There's an endpoint, and it goes this way forever, right? So we need a condition right there. We need a domain, right? A condition, because we're going to give the condition in terms of x, which is technically your domain. So what we're going to say to write this piece, you're going to say if your x values are what? If your x values are greater than a certain value or less than a certain value? Greater than what? Greater than or equal to 0. See, here's 0 on the x, and that's where this line begins on x's, and it goes to the right, which means greater than. Okay, so your piece with the condition would be y equals -x plus 3 if x is greater than or equal to 0. Everybody understand that? So that's really what you need to know to be able to do piecewise functions. If I asked you for the domain, we already have the domain. It's right here. X is greater than or equal to 0. If I asked you for the range, what's the range? Now remember, the range are your y values. So y would be what? Greater than a certain value or less than a certain value? Less than, right? And it's actually less than or equal to the 3 right here, because it's below 3. It's at 3 and below. If it were an open dot, it would just be less than 3, but since it's a solid dot, it's below 3. So you're going to say y is less than or equal to 3. Any questions? No? All right, so when we do 3 pieces at a time, usually we have some type of segment in the middle, and it gets a little confusing, right? What line would this be? What would the equation be? What's the slope? What's the m value? 1/2. Okay, 1/2. And what's the b value, the y-intercept? 1. Okay. So our equation is technically y equals 1/2 x plus 1, but we need a condition. So in terms of the x number line that goes from left to right, would you say that it's to the left, it's to the right, or should I say right, or is it between two values? It's between two values. It's between the x value of 0 and 2, right? So we need to give a condition if, and you're going to put x right in the middle, the smaller number on the left side, the bigger number on the right side. The smaller number is 0, the bigger number is 2. And of course you put the inequality symbols. Now if you have a solid dot, you have to put the or equal to. So which one has a solid dot? The 2, right? This one. So you have to put a solid dot underneath the 2, or a solid line underneath the 2. And that's it. That's your piece with a condition. It's between here and here. So if I asked you what's the domain of this thing, you would say this. This is the domain, right? If I asked you for the range, that's a little bit trickier. Now, why is it a little bit trickier? Because range is the y values, right? So if we say the range, what are your y values? Well, it's also going to be between two areas. Check this out. Is this graph at 3? Does it actually reach the y value of 3? No. Does it reach the y value of 0? No. So it's actually between the y value of 1 and 2, right? So you'd actually have to make a compound inequality for the range in this case. Now this is rare, but it might happen. Might not, probably not, but it might happen. So what would the range be? You'd put y in the middle, your smaller value, which is what? 1 on the left, your bigger value, which is what? 2 on the right, and of course you're going to put the less than symbols, but you're going to put a or equal to underneath the one that has a solid dot, which would be at 2. Any questions on that? No? That's a little bit trickier because we're not used to looking at the y-axis from here to here. Let's do another. Let's jump around here. Oh, that's interesting. Sometimes we have a totally flat line. What would the equation be right there? What's the slope? 0. The b value is 2. So that means that your equation will be y equals 2. Why? Because it's a totally flat line crossing the y-axis at the value of 2. Okay, so now we need to give it a condition because this is obviously between two values. What are those two values? -2 and +3. Okay, so this is from here, from this x value of -2 to this x value of +3. So we are talking about domains here, or the x values. So put the x in the middle, put -2 on the left side, put +3 on the right side, and then put the inequalities, the less than inequalities, and put an or equal to below the one that has a solid dot on it, which would be the -2. Now here's a tricky question. What would the range be? So once again, the range of the y values, like does the graph go down? Does it go up? It's only at this one specific value of 2. All right, so the range would be y equals 2. Let's do a couple more here. How about, that one looks interesting. How about that guy? What's my slope right there? Up 2 over 1, so you could just say m equals 2. Now, what's the b value? That one's tricky because you can't see where it crosses. You know it's going to cross somewhere up here. The only way you're actually able to locate that would be to continue with your pattern of up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So it crosses where? 3. So the b value is 3. Okay, so our equation is y equals 2x plus 3, and we need a condition. All right, if what? If your x values are they greater than a certain x value? Is this graph greater than a certain x value or less than a certain x value? Less than, and it is a solid dot, so what are we going to say? Less than or equal to -3. So the domain are your x values, the range are your y values, in this case, x being less than or equal to -3. What do you think? So when we actually state the condition of this, we're actually stating the domain because we're looking at it in terms of x, right? So if I said, what's the domain of this, you would just say x is less than or equal to -3. What's the range? The range would be what? The range, is it above a certain value on y, or is it below a certain value on y? Below, it's less than or equal to what y value? -3, right? Here it is. This is, you're at the y level of -3. It's right there at -3, and it's below. So y is less than or equal to -3. What do you think? Let's do one more. Let's see. Which one could we do? Oh yeah, this one's funky. I like it. What is our line? Like if you were to extend it just forever and ever, what would that line actually be? So what's the m value right here? You go down how many? 1, 2, 3, over how many? 2. So the slope is down 3 over 2. So -3 over 2. You with me? Okay, now, what is the b value? Oh, I can't see it. -7, because if you continue with the pattern down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, you're going to be right on that y-axis, and that's 2 levels below the 5, so that's -7. So the b value is at -7. So that means our equation is y equals -3/2 x minus 7, but we don't have the whole line. We only have a piece of the line, and it's between two certain values, and we're talking about x on the condition. So you need to continue this with if, and where is it between? Between what x value and what other x value is it between? Between -4 and -2. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
It's between -4 and -2. So we need to write that in our condition between -4 and -2. Of course, we're talking about x's. So you put the -4, the smaller value on the left side, -2, the bigger value on the right side. And then you put the less than symbols, and wherever there's a solid dot, you put the or equal to as well. So you're going to put an or equal to on the -2. So that's your appropriate condition. Make sense? Okay. I want to end this video right here. Hopefully that helped.